Squad leaders during this summit in Wilmington in Delaware. The discussions were fruitful. They focused on how Quad can further keep working for global good. We will keep working together in key sectors like healthcare, technology, climate change and capacity building is the comment that has come to the fore from the Prime Minister. Now, Chirai Thakkar, as far as the Quad grouping is concerned, we are going to be seeing elections in at least two of these countries in the near future, which is Japan and the United States. If there is a change of guard as far as White House is concerned, some of these commitments that the Quad groupings have adhered to, including climate change, could policies on that change if a Republican president was to govern United States next?
Look, I just glanced through this entire Wilmington Declaration. Again, we will require much more time to go through it step by step. But except that climate part, what you are emphasizing rightly so, because President Trump has not made climate the same priority. In fact, parts of Republican administration are against going strong on climate change. So, barring that, if you look at other initiatives, they are broadly here to stay. And in fact, the entire Quad project is something of the brainchild of the Trump administration. So, in fact, if anything, Trump administration comes back, what we'll see is a renewed emphasis, because Trump would like to cement his legacy that this is a project that I started. Prior to me, Obama administration was not very sure. At one point they wanted to contain China, but at the other end they also wanted to continue benefiting from globalization. So the Obama administration, although it started this pivot to Asia policy, but they did not actually consolidate through this kind of a strong initiative, and it took only President Trump to come onto the scene, convince all four democracies that we need this, we need to institutionalize this, and let's move forward. So it is actually a Trump era project, and therefore if Trump administration comes back, they may go slow on one or two policies in line with their domestic agenda, but their emphasis will remain on the overall Quad project.
Because the climate and clean energy finds mention as far as the Squad declaration, the White House declaration is also concerned, like you were pointing out. But speaking of what the Prime Minister did besides the Quad summit overnight for us here in India, is that he held bilaterals with all of those three leaders, with Anthony Albanese, with Fumio Kishida and with Joe Biden. Now, this is, of course, the last bilateral that the Prime Minister is going to have with Joe Biden. Whether or not there is a Democrat or a Republican government next, Joe Biden and Prime Minister Modi's bonhomie, this perhaps is one of the last times that we would see that. Irrespective of whether there's a change of guard or not in the White House, is that something that would continue? Because many believe that Donald Trump would be a better partner for India, for Prime Minister specifically.
Uh, Trump has shown certain camaraderie and bonhomie at a personal level with Prime Minister Modi, and on certain specific aspects when it comes to Indian policies, especially of this government, he has been largely uncritical. So, under Trump's watch, the abrogation of Article 370 happened, and we saw a very firm response from the Trump administration. That was not at all critical, while there were murmurs from the other side of the aisle. So we don't know if this same thing would have happened in the Democratic administration. India would have received the same set of support. So that firm support India has already seen during the Trump administration. But again, looking from New Delhi's perspective, when there is a Democratic administration in the White House, there are one set of challenges, like they want India to work more on climate change. They are critical of certain policies of this government. But when a Republican candidate is there in the White House, or a Republican president is there in the White House, what we see is essentially the emphasis changes on trade, and they always want to reduce that trade gap, so on and so forth. So from New Delhi's perspective, each administration comes with certain set of challenges. Of course, the plus side on the Trump administration is that they give this unwavering support. But coming back to Prime Minister's last one-on-one, You see, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is that one grandee of this group who has outlived at least two to three leaders from all countries. Japan has changed two prime ministers, and in fact, Prime Minister Kishida had decided that he is not going to contest elections again. So next time when we are going to host this summit in India, there will be a new Japanese prime minister, a new American president, and of course Albanese is here to stay. Uh, I think with every outgoing prime minister and a new or a president and a new incoming prime minister or president, certain priorities do change. But this continued emphasis, at least in theory, shows that even though the leaders are going to change in all four democracies, and these are democracies, so therefore the leaders are going to change. But regardless of that, they have ensured that certain basic minimum policies, especially where all four countries are facing similar challenges and feel that China is going above board on these issues, they are going to work together.
Absolutely. China is the common enemy here. But as far as the two conflicts that the world is witnessing, Chirayu, as far as West Asia is concerned, and of course the Russia-Ukraine war, which has gone on now well beyond a year and a half now, India is seen to be as a country, Prime Minister Modi is seen to be as a leader that could play mediator. He's the only global leader that has visited both Ukraine and Russia. When he did visit Russia, there was a lot of pressure from the West, from the United States as well. It was not taken very kindly. Do you think that's something that will continue to be the focus of these leaders, of the world leaders? Is that something that would be discussed with the Prime Minister for India to take a more proactive role in these conflicts?
Yes, I think in both these conflicts, if you see, India has some interest or the other. In the Russia-Ukraine war that came on the heels of a devastating pandemic, it was in nobody's interest that this sort of a war that disrupts food prices, fuel prices, fertilizer supply across the world. It was in nobody's interest. And in the last few months, India has clearly shown shuttle diplomacy. First the Prime Minister went to Russia, and then he went to Ukraine, and then again NSA Ajit Doval, he went to Russia to brief President Putin on what transpired in Ukraine. So I think there is some subtle diplomacy that India has already undertaken, and after that there was a call with President Biden. So I do not think that this shuttle diplomacy has happened without the confidence of Washington. And in any way, you have to take Washington into confidence if you want to play some sort of role in mediating, or at least, if not mediating, being an honest interlocutor of this conflict.
Right.
And this particular in-person meeting acquires more significance because after that in-person interlocutor role that Prime Minister played both with President Zelensky and President Putin, this is the first time he'll be meeting top brass of the US, and he can actually speak freely one-on-one, face to face, and tell them that what are the broad contours of peace diplomacy that is possible and what is Russia thinking. So that is one very specific way in which India can contribute. The second conflict, the Middle East conflict, if you see now, India's stakes are, one might think that they are not direct in this conflict the way they are in the Russia Ukraine crisis, but that particular episode of October 7, it has actually upended the whole IMEC logic, because just before October 7, when this summit G20 happened, India launched this initiative called IMEC, and it wanted to create a corridor that gives connectivity all the way from Mumbai and Kandla in the Western Indian Ocean region all the way up to Europe and onwards. And
Right.
this project has upended by a single terrorist attack. So I think India would be interested, although it is not playing any role as an interlocutor, but India would be interested that West Asia remains calm and this connectivity project flourishes as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So India does have high stakes as far as both those conflicts are concerned. India perhaps is also seen as the country that could play mediator, if not at least in the Israel conflict, definitely in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. On that note, I have to leave it at that. Chirayu Thakkar, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. The Prime Minister is in the United States. He, in fact, just left for New York, where he is going to be undertaking his further engagements, including the community event, which is going to take place in Long Island. My colleague, Aman Sharma has been in New York. He's been getting us reports, the excitement that's building up there amidst the expats to catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister. We get you this special report from where that event is going to take place later tonight.